Critical Role, everyone's favorite stream Dungeons & Dragons campaign, has a bit of a problem. You see, as much as I love Critical Role in their current campaign, Campaign 3, I can't help but notice and feel a kind of glaring problem with Critical Role Campaign 3. It's kind of slow. Hello everyone, welcome back to Fraud on the Telly. Join me today as we discuss what I believe is the problem with Critical Role Campaign 3. Yet again. Just to note, this video will contain spoilers for Critical Role Campaign 3 up to Critical Role Campaign 3 episode 69. Nice. So consider yourself warned if you're not caught up on Critical Role. So before we get into this, I just want to say that I am a massive Critical Role fan, and I love Critical Role Campaign 3, even through some of its glaring weaknesses, in my opinion. This is not the first time that I have discussed some issues with Critical Role Campaign 3, some issues that I've picked up on, as well as some issues that a lot of the community loves to complain about. Now, with any major fan base, there's going to be a section of the fan base who is just never happy, but we have to take some of their criticism with a grain of salt, but also realize that some of the criticism comes from a very valid place. And I think that one of the biggest criticism that feels really valid about Critical Role Campaign 3 is its pacing. Currently, at the time of recording, I just watched Critical Role Campaign 3 episode 69. Nice. It actually doesn't just feel slow either. Compared to the other two Critical Role campaigns, it actually is slower. If you look at how long it took Critical Role Campaign 1 and Critical Role Campaign 2 to episode 69, you notice a bit of a difference. For example, Critical Role Campaign 1 got to episode 69 in about a year and 6 months, while Critical Role Campaign 2 took about a year and 5 months. And then we have Critical Role Campaign 3, which came in with a whopping 1 year and around 10 months. So we can see that Campaign 3 actually has been slower, but it does have some potential valid reasons. But not only has it actually been slower, it feels slower because of the way that several of the arcs have played out in the campaign. You see, Campaign 3 kind of opened with a strange pace, maybe compared to some of the other campaigns. There's a number of factors as to why this is. One, the fact that they take the last Thursday at the end of the month off, which contributes to the fact that this game is naturally going to take longer. Two, there was like a party shuffle in the first kind of arc of Critical Role Campaign 3, where we saw the introduction and then leaving of guest character Robbie Damon. As well, we saw Travis Willingham introduce a character, and then that character subsequently die and then be replaced with another character. All this kind of flipping around of party dynamics, and the fact that this party seemed at least to take a little while longer to all gel together in character, largely because they are just probably the most chaotic party in Critical Role campaign history so far. It felt like it took a while for things to kind of settle in Critical Role Campaign 3. Now, to me, I didn't think the early arc of Critical Role Campaign 3 and the fact that it felt a little bit slower was really that big of a deal. A large contributing factor to this was the fact that EXU Calamity was released pretty early on in Critical Role Campaign 3, so that basically forced them to take like a month and a half long break for this little mini event series, which had to go there because it does intrinsically link with the whole entire storyline that is being told here in Critical Role Campaign 3, because that's the fun thing about Critical Role Campaign 3. It is a kind of amalgamation of all of the lore and the kind of grand story building that has been going on since the very first Critical Role campaign aired. But still, I can't help but feel like Campaign 3 has been kind of slow even in the more later arcs. So the first kind of major climax plot point in this campaign so far occurred in episode 51, the Apogee Solstice, where we got a bunch of really big reveals as our party, as well as a number of their allies, faced off against Ludinus the Last, trying to prevent him from binding the moon of Ruidus and releasing this ancient being known as Predathos onto the world of Exandria to eat all the gods. Obviously, that sounds really freaking hype and is a really cool storyline that has been building the entire time in Campaign 3. But here's kind of the issue. That Apogee Solstice fight was episode 51. We're currently in episode 69. That was 18 episodes ago, and it feels like this group of 18 episodes, kind of up until this point, has really been just kind of meandering along. A good chunk of these episodes in this time period came when the parties were split and then each were given new guest characters, and they kind of had two little mini arcs which took place until eventually the party reconvened. Now, while this was fun and I loved all of the guest characters that were introduced, I can't help but feel like it kind of took me out of the moment and the kind of pacing of the campaign. We still don't know exactly what the heck happened on the Apogee Solstice. Now, a lot of this can be remedied eventually through the reveal of story by Matt Mercer, but at the moment, a lot of it just feels, well, a little bit unsatisfying. We had this really big build up to this really big moment, and it seemed like the bad guys succeeded, at least maybe not all the way, but they did relatively succeed. I mean, while they did slightly delay what was going on with Moodness in the Apogee Solstice, I don't think you can call that episode a dub for our party. I mean, Vax was turned in some tiny little disc of divinity, Plain Letter Rin was turned into stone, and Keyleth suffered some really bad damage. Now, I'm sure some of you may be sitting there thinking, wow, this guy's doing a lot of complaining about just a D&D show that's in live stream. And yes, maybe I am. The only reason that I am, though, is because I am a massive fan. And even through all of these kind of pacing problems, I still love the story that's being told in Critical Role Campaign 3. And I still believe that Matt Mercer can kind of tie all of this together with some more information reveals later on down the line. Obviously, it seems like whatever Lewdness was planning was somewhat stopped during the big Apogee Solstice fight, but I can't help but feel like this time period between episodes 51 and currently 69, it just feels a little bit unsatisfying, honestly. We had this big rush to this big epic moment where our party very much failed. So far, it doesn't feel like we've really seen or felt the repercussions of this failure, which I'm sure, at least I hope, that there will be. Knowing Matt Mercer, I assume that there will be repercussions for not completely stopping it in this moment, if it even could have been completely stopped in this moment. Overall, I love Campaign 3. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the direction that it's taking, and I love how it's focusing on this big overarching lore plot that really links all of the Critical Role campaigns and even EXU Calamity and all of the lore of Critical Role all together. However, it does really feel like this campaign is kind of slow, and I'm not the only one who feels this way. I mean, episode 69 itself was kind of a funny meme episode, which kind of makes sense, I guess, considering the fact that it is episode 69, but even then, not really a lot happened, and not really a lot has happened since the Apogee Solstice. The main thing that happened was our party going on individual arcs apart from each other, eventually reconvening, and then finally, basically curing Keyleth's wounds, to where now it feels like we can finally set out and actually try to deal with this whole, moon creature devouring of gods problem. So in totality, there's a lot of reasons why Campaign 3 is slower and feels slower. A lot of it has to do with the number of breaks they've taken from the actual game itself, whether for other content or just because they take breaks at the end of the month. A lot of it has to do with the fact that there was a 10 plus episode kind of split of the party that happened right in the middle of when everything was going on. Something that was a lot of fun, but I can't lie, did kind of take me out of the crazy moment that we had literally an episode prior. I'm not gonna lie, I really don't enjoy making these videos where I basically just critique Critical Role, one of my favorite shows and some of my favorite people, just for the whole entire video. But I have noticed that the Critical Role fan base does feel a little resistant to criticism. Now, to be fair, a lot of the criticism that's given of Critical Role, especially on Reddit, can be a little, heavy-handed, we'll say. So I do understand why Critical Role fans get defensive when it comes to people who critique their favorite Dungeons & Dragons show. Irregardless, though, I do think that healthy critique is good for Critical Role. While I love them and they produce amazing content and they're amazing storytellers, they don't always get everything right, and sometimes things don't always land. Obviously, I could be looking back here by the end of Critical Role Campaign 3 and be like, wow, I was so wrong. Matt managed to tie everything together, and I have full faith that he will. Campaign 3 is very interesting and unique compared to the other two campaigns because it kind of seems like this Ruidus arc is going to be the entire through line through the entire campaign, but really only time will tell. Who knows? Maybe by episode 100, we'll have switched directions in this campaign completely, though I highly doubt it. As always, if you enjoyed the video, learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think Critical Role Campaign 3 has been kind of slow, or do you think that Matt will eventually figure it all out and it's going to all come together? We just need to give it some time. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more Critical Role content, don't forget to check out our Critical Role lore series. As always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace, love, Adu. There was a time when MCs used to sick track. Nah, don't get mad, I'm not saying